Hey guys, this is Group 33. Myself, Addy, and Muhammad looked at the article Attention on Our Mind, the Role of Spatial Attention in Visual Working Memory. These are the people that created the article. The other references that we used while talking about like previous research and just other concepts that we used in our explanation. So as indicated by the title, the basic question of the current study is, what is the role of spatial attention in visual working memory? Both visual attention and working memory are important in guiding our everyday behavior. So let's define what is to be compared. According to studies conducted by Baddeley and Hitch, working memory is a temporary system which can retain both verbal information and visual information. Visual attention is a mechanism which assigns what verbal information we attend due based on the relevance of that information of the task at hand. Many previous studies have indicated a strong link between visual attention and working memory. A series of studies conducted by, I'm going to call him A because I don't know how to pronounce that, found that attending to a location leads to better information processing at that location. Also, that rehearsal of spatial information may modulate areas of the brain associated with early sensory mechanisms. Posner also found that when attention to locations is impaired, the ability to recall information about those locations is also impaired. Other studies have found similar findings. Vogel and company found that attention must be paid to a new object for the object to be stored in working memory. Schmidt and company found that the probability of information about a location being transferred to working memory increases as more visual attention is paid to that location. The main goal of our study, or the study that we looked at, was to determine whether spatial attention is used to retrieve information from visual working memory. The general hypothesis was that if attention is fixed on a location that provides relevant information about a task, reaction times to that task will be shorter than if attention is fixed on a location that provides no relevant information. So for our participants, there were 8 from the University of Illinois between the ages of 18 and 26. They all reported to have normal vision. We thought that they should have picked more participants and from wider age ranges and from maybe wider universities or just a wider pool in general to improve the external validity of the study. So the visual field that they saw was called the visual array. There were 4 circles in the corner of the screen, and they were randomly colored from red, green, blue, yellow, and gray. So for the procedure, they were shown the array very briefly. They were told to memorize the circles, the colors, and shortly after the array disappeared, a question which would say red, blue, or any of the other colors appeared in the center of the screen. They were to press Y if they thought the color was present, and N if they believed it was not. For 2/3 of the trial, they had a probe reaction time task. Shortly after the color question, a probe was shown at one of the 4 array circles, and they had to press the spacebar in reaction, and they were being measured on how quickly after the probe was shown that they pressed the spacebar button. There were 480 trials total. Half had the color and half didn't, so half they were supposed to answer Y and half they were supposed to answer N. 2/3 had the speed probe task, and 40 of the 2/3 had the probe in the same spot as the color that was questioned. So the 480 trials was good for internal validity, we thought, but it also provided a problem because each participant had to do 60 trials, and we thought that that may have been a little bit much, that they may have either gotten bored or there might have been some decay for the reaction times on later trials, so that may not have been indicative of their trials as a whole. So if they spread it out between more people, we thought that would have been better. So for the results, the 40 trials where the probe was in the same spot as the question color were called valid trials, and the others were called invalid. The valid trials had a mean of 385 milliseconds as a response time after they had been shown the probe. Invalid trials had a mean of about 399 milliseconds. So nowhere in the study were participants told to focus on the area where they were asked about the color, but they did it anyways. Another example of research consistent with these results is a 2000 study done by Downing, in which observers were more likely to attend to a face matching the one that they were required to hold in memory relative to a new or novel face. Also, Oliver's and company, not to confuse it with the movie, in 2006, the study showed that an object kept in working memory causes more attentional capture when the very same object is not stored in working memory. So the present study overall expands on the previous ideas of attention and working memory. So attention keeps and stores information in working memory, but it also performs as the means by which information is retrieved from visual working memory. So also in the present study, participants were asked something about a property of one of the objects stored in visual working memory. To retrieve this information, the location of the object was used. This aspect demonstrates an interaction between Ungerleider and Mishkin's what, or the ventral, and where, or the dorsal, pathways in the visual system. The where system, specifically the locations of the objects, was used to retrieve the what, specifically the color of one of the objects. PET imaging by Smith, Jonides, and Cope suggests that working memory for object properties activates predominantly in the inferior prefrontal cortex, whereas working memory for spatial locations activates predominantly in the superior prefrontal cortex. To analyze this further, the human prefrontal cortex is functionally organized according to what is called quote-unquote domain specificity. Processing spatial information in working memory is accomplished in one brain area, specifically the dorsolateral prefrontal area, while processing non-spatial information is accomplished in another area, specifically the ventrolateral prefrontal areas. So the data of the study shows that addressing one system, the what, can entail the usage of the other system, the where, to access spatial information. The way we interact with information that is stored in the visual working memory is similar to the way that we interact with information that is actually present in the outside world. When we look at the outside world, different features of objects are processed by different neurons within the visual system. The consensus is that location information provides the key to access and bind different types of information. The findings in this particular study are consistent with studies that show a relationship between attention, eye movements, and working memory. A study by Richardson and Spivey in 2000 showed that participants systematically fixate specific empty spaces when questioned about the semantic content of a linguistic event that they had previously taken place at that location. When participants were asked questions about video clips they previously memorized, they tended to fixate on empty locations that were previously associated with information related to the questions. Conversely, in this study, there were no improvements in memory performance observed due to attending to these specific locations. So what we're looking at here was the representation. This was the steps of the procedure. What was so great about it was that nothing in the study asked the participant to focus on one area. It was just that the question, and based on the results, the question prior, when they asked, had only, it didn't matter which circle it was just if the color was present in the study, they would automatically go to that location based on the probe reaction time. So, in conclusion, the findings of this study suggest that accessing information from memory is not much different than accessing information from the outside world. In both cases, spatial visual attention plays a key role in accessing this information. So that's pretty much all we have. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something, and have a good Thanksgiving, even though you'll probably watch this after Thanksgiving.